In episode 8, I called it one's nature, the unjudged barbarism. But behind one's nature lies a more fundamental neural seed, the predisposition. A predisposition is a value-neutral natural phenomenon. But when mirrored in relationships, it becomes one's nature. And when that nature reduces another to a mere means, evil is completed. And when this individual evil is neglected, it swallows the civilizational system. Today we uncover its cause. Value is a pursuable difference. The value instinct is our innate tendency to generate energy toward that difference. The instinct to acquire value is not evil. It is merely the language of survival. But within this instinct, a fork in the road already exists. There is no such thing as a good gene or an evil gene. Instead, every brain runs two separate systems, an empathy circuit and a reward circuit. In most of us, the two keep each other in check. But at the outer edges of the population, that balance breaks. One extreme cannot bear to hurt others, driven by powerful empathy. The other extreme is completely overwhelmed by domination, possession, and stimulation. When this biological tilt shows itself outwardly in relationships, we call it one's nature. On that tilt, some are born leaning towards strong empathy and a detachment from reward. People commonly call them, naturally, good-natured. Our common sense already knew this. It simply lacked the logic to explain it. And M is closer to that side. Humans are the only beings who placed order upon instinct. Reason consists of three operations. First, counterfactual planning. Second, normative justification. And third, metacognition that builds the self through error correction. Reason defines various traits. It does not create them. Evil is not our default state. Rather, it explodes when these different types clash in society and go to war. Through this collision, reason discovers the ultimate law. As Kant derived, do you treat the other person merely as a means, rather than an end? The desire to win is not evil. Fair competition is based on empathy. It means putting yourself in another's place and treating the opponent as an equal end. This creates a universal value standard. Through social consensus, it evolves into ethics and finally, into law. There were savage acts committed by Japan's bushi, commonly known as samurai. Tsujijairi, cutting down innocent passers-by to test a new sword or technique. Kirisotogomen, murdering a commoner for a slight and leaving the body. Ronbudori, rape, plunder. Hidadori, capturing people for human trafficking. These were not moments of impulse. They were acts of fixing others as mere means and consumables. This is one's innate nature manifested as clear, completed evil at the individual level. When no civilizational order exists, or when the powerful simply crush that order, they do not even need to disguise themselves. They declare the law of the jungle to be order itself. This is barbarism. This pattern is not unique to the East. Europe's witch hunts and religious inquisitions, the colonial atrocities that tore Africa apart, and America's system of black slavery. Histories of fixing human beings as test subjects, resources, property, and tools. When this individual means is repeated through a form, it cascades into historical instrumentalization. And evil has already begun. All value is born from difference, the difference between me and you, between the haves and have-nots. Difference itself is not where evil begins. It is merely the gradient where energy flows. Recognizing difference is the language of survival. The East's compassion, Sienzixin, and sense of shame and justice, Zayawuzixin, and the West's empathy and Kant's principle of ends, all point to the same place. The moment that difference becomes grounds for exclusion and harm, difference becomes discrimination. And discrimination, repeated, becomes structure. That is when evil takes form beyond the single act. Even after that value standard evolves through ethics into law, reality tells a different story. That very law is already severely tilted by elite judges and plutocratic legislatures. Therefore, we cannot judge what is right by legality alone. Those who share this pattern of instrumentalization recognize one another and gather. This is how a form is born. Driven by value instinct that fixes others as mere means, they prove the old saying, greed has no end. The system has an immunity. its mechanisms of punishment. Once that immunity breaks down or is captured, the form swallows the entire system. Look at history. The seeds of the Joseon royal clan became a sprawling net. While the true royal core numbered only a few thousand, millions fraudulently claimed the name to escape discrimination. Today, the tiny authentic clan controls this fake network of 2.6 million people. Using a central control tower, they weaponize this mass as their private organization to expand their power. In Japan, these private networks evolve into zaibotsu and keiretsu to seize the country. In Korea, once a colony, they replicate this model to create hereditary chaebols. These corporate forms completely swallow the nation's economy. Under capitalism, economic dominance naturally turns into political capture. Thus, the Samsung Republic is born. The moment reason's order is reduced to a tool of raw instinct, collective evil is complete. Evil cannot justify itself, so it steals and wears what is real. The final form of evil is not violence, but disguise. The most perfect disguise hides inside what is good. The same is true of religion's processes of forgiveness. Dirty money from the evil ones flows in. In return, it produces silence, advocacy, or a religious self-rationalization that the money will be used for good. Evil parasitizes and infects good mechanisms. In revenge, suffering itself is the goal. It chases catharsis and the raw pleasure of retaliation. This is evil. If a good person falls into this trap, they must pass through deep reflection and repentance. As Nietzsche warned, he who fights monsters must take care lest he thereby become a monster. Punishment and accusation do not aim at suffering. Suffering is merely an inevitable byproduct of restoring order. They may look like the same blade, yet revenge and punishment split here. Revenge seeks satisfaction in the other's suffering. Punishment ends in the re-establishment of a shared standard. Not everything illegal is evil. Not everything legal is free of evil. The ultimate criterion is the motive. If the motive reduces another person to a mere means, it is evil. But if the motive is to restore order, even an illegal act can fall outside of evil. Then comes neglect. Even without lifting a finger, evil wins when those with the power and duty to punish lock the door and stay silent. That silence becomes the ultimate fuel for evil. Once systemic neglect is built into the infrastructure, society turns irrational. Losing all hope, its citizens abandon the system, and the entire structure collapses. This is the dark loop of history. It is the exact path that every fallen civilization has walked before us. Before the dark loop, all a human can do is cut the chain. There are two ways to cut it: revenge and punishment. Revenge cuts the chain, but becomes part of the chain itself. That is why reflection and repentance must follow. Punishment cuts the chain and remains outside it. That is the only difference. But both arrive after the fact. Both arrive only after the explosion has already happened. We cannot change one's innate nature. Both revenge and punishment cut the chain only after it is already complete. What we truly need is to cut it before it begins: culture, environment, and morality. True morality is a collective belief system that compels even those with an evil nature to maintain order. A strong moral framework cuts the chain before the explosion ever happens. A reward-dominant biological predisposition is not evil. One's nature is not evil on its own either. But the moment that tilt reveals itself in relationships, fixing another as a mere means, evil has already begun at the individual level. When that evil is neglected, it becomes form. When no civilizational order exists to restrain it, that form does not even need disguise. It simply declares the law of the jungle to be order itself. This is barbarism. Form swallows the system, and the system steals the face of the real and repeats. The entire civilization becomes complicit. Difference is not where evil begins. When difference becomes discrimination, and discrimination becomes structure, that is where evil begins. Instinct is not evil. When it shows itself in relationships, we call it one's nature. Evil begins when that tilt becomes an act that fixes another as a mere means. Crime or not, the criterion is motive. When that evil is neglected, swallows the rules, and steals the face of the real, The dark loop has already begun. Look at how this dark loop plays out in reality. Countless brilliant minds and scholars left everything behind. They chased the Statue of Liberty, migrating to the land of freedom. Their collective intelligence built modern civilization and won world wars. But the tragic loop of history repeated itself. Intelligence achieves everything, but selfishness takes it all. Today, people worship a fake version of freedom. They confuse true liberty with total lawlessness. This toxic freedom, mixed with extreme individualism, took over the world. The result? The rulers now have absolute personal freedom. Evil goes unpunished. And the elites enjoy their ultimate power, the freedom to exploit everyone else.